What's up, Chumbags? Welcome to the HQ. My name is Kandula, and today I'm joined by Nick Sivak for a very special episode of the Respawn Station podcast. See, since the website has been up, which of course you can go to respawnstation.com and see everything that we've typed over the years, we've covered a console launch or two. Console launch, or two, but we've not done one like this, and definitely not on the podcast, because this isn't just a PS5 Pro. This isn't just an Xbox Series X in white. This is the Nintendo Switch 2 reveal, which happened earlier today on April 2nd. And, this is such a special episode that we're actually going to be changing up the format for this one. So instead of asking ourselves the very important question that we always do, we're going to be doing that at the latter half of the show. We're going to go right into the Nintendo Switch and everything you need to know about it, along with, a healthy dose of opinions from Nick and myself. So with that said, Nick, first of all, how are you doing, my friend?
Any day we get a video game broadcast to sink our teeth into is a good day for me. So
yeah, I know.
Yeah, I'm riding pretty high. I spent most of the day, the early part of the day, rewatching and watching these trailers. So I've seen a couple of these a few times, to say the least, and I'm looking forward to getting into it.
Expert source. Yeah, we got the expert source here. And Nick and I did actually watch the show together, and we kind of went through that experience. And I'll tell you what, it was an experience. This was one of those you could go back and watch the show now, but being there live was a totally different animal. But with that said, before we get into kind of our own thoughts and opinions, let's start with kind of just the facts, right? So, Nick, give us a little bit of a rundown of the hardware. What are we working with here, and what is that darn C button up to?
Sure thing. So, obviously, Switch 2 is the next in the Switch line, as you might guess, based on that fancy old number there at the end. In the Direct, they said it's not just like a new Switch, but, for all intents and purposes, it kind of is. But there are some pretty notable improvements here. Let's just start off with that C button, like you asked. That's the one that everybody's been wondering about, this mysterious C button that's been added to the Joy-Con. This is a chat button. And essentially what the C button does is you'll press it and it'll give you access to join, essentially, like a party chat. So think of it like an Xbox party chat or like a PlayStation call, that sort of thing. Nintendo is finally hopping on that bandwagon. You don't need to use a weird smartphone app and all this other malarkey, essentially.
Yeah.
It's supported on the system now. They showed it in this video where you have like a group of friends playing it. It looks weirdly a lot like Discord. I'm not sure if it is Discord or if it's just heavily inspired by that, but
it doesn't seem to be Discord. I didn't see any mention of it being kind of run on their software or anything. So yeah, I think it's just an original thing. They're just like, how do we make it the simplest? I mean, it literally looks like what we're communicating through right now, with kind of the main display and then little tiny icons at the bottom for each person who's in the call.
Yeah, and they also have like screen sharing functionality through this system. They showed multiple people in a call that have, different games that they're playing running on the screen. You can do like a light green screen effect if you have the new Nintendo Switch 2 camera accessory.
Which we'll get to as well, all the pricing and everything like that.
But yeah, it's that C button, it's for game chat, hosted on the system. There's a microphone built into the Switch 2, so if you don't have like a headset or something like that, you're still able to use this functionality. We'll see what the quality on that is like. Obviously, in the video, some of the video streaming tech looked a little framey here and there.
Yeah,
kind of to be expected from Nintendo, unfortunately. But it's cool that it's at least a new feature that the Switch 2 can utilize and can remove some of those extra weird steps that you would have to go through previously to do a similar thing. I mentioned the microphone. It's just like, a standard onboard microphone for the Switch. Getting into things like
it does have that the blender mode, which I'll be curious to see how accurate that is. But what they showcased is one of the key features, right? From the built-in mic, it's not just a built-in mic, kind of casually. It's specialized, and then also they showcased the Nintendo Switch 2 Pro controller, which also has a dedicated headphone jack now too. So a lot of audio. This is definitely a social system. I know the Switch 1 was made for like loners and just people with no friends. So the Switch 2 really kind of breaking that mold here.
People who go to rooftop parties by themselves.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But
we'll continue.
Maybe some more interesting technical features, or something that might interest you and I a bit more than box standard game chat, would be a bigger 1080p screen on the system itself. So the previous Switch was a 720p screen, I believe. This one is LCD. It is not OLED. That's causing a bit of a stir. I personally was expecting that because they're just going to have a Switch 2 OLED in a year or two.
Yeah, I was going to say it's a mid-gen refresh, so guaranteed a little bit of an upgrade in that way.
I didn't write the exact dimensions down, but I think it's almost like 1.5 inches bigger than the current Switches as far as like how wide the screen is.
I believe it's off the top of my head. I believe it's 7.9 inches, so almost 8 inches, almost an 8-inch display on the Switch 2. I can't speak. I need to do some word exercises. Switch Mario Maker. Sorry.
Yeah. So that's cool. The screen and the Switch itself now supports HDR, so you do get a little bit better color range, even though it isn't an OLED screen or whatever. It is still going to get you a little bit better picture than just your box standard Switches or your Switch 1. Better speakers. They're always really vague when they say this. This was a marketing thing for the OLED too. It's just like, it sounds better. It's like, all right, we'll take it where we can. But the one new addition audio wise, outside of what we mentioned, is that it does support 3D audio. So you'll get a little bit more.
They had a little cool
sound
demo during the showcase about how would it work, which was, as far as I understand, just kind of like, hey, this is what 3D audio is, in case you just didn't know what three-dimensional audio was,
Yeah. On the back of the Switch, in portable mode, it has a new stand that seems a lot better than the previous stands. The OLED model stand,
I was gonna say, it kind of looks like a little bit of a modified version of the OLED one, because the OLED, I think the whole bottom of the back came out for the OLED one, right?
Correct.
And this one is just like the outer ring of the back bottom.
It seems like a bit more like, I don't know if tense is the right word. It seems more like adjustable to be able to get different viewing angles out of it. So that's nice. 2 USB-C ports, which is something
one
that
at the bottom,
a bunch of people pointed out prior, based off like patents and stuff. And yeah, that was something that was interesting because when we first saw that it had 2 USB ports and one was on the top, it never really occurred to me like why they would do that. And then people were like, well, if you're in handheld mode with the current Switch, you can't charge it. And I was like, shows how much I play handheld mode, because that was never an issue for me.
Yeah
But I'm sure it was an issue for a lot of people, so it's glad that they have a pretty good fix for that here. And then kind of the last thing two things. So 256 gigabyte internal storage, 8 times
a big upgrade from the
Switch.
The last one.
A lot of people maybe would be hoping for a little bit more, but the Switch 2 does support what is it? SD Express, micro SD Express cards. So I've seen people on Twitter posting like you can already buy these cards that will be supported for Switch. But if your current card is not micro SD Express, it will not work on the new system. So just as a PSA to people out there.
So the Switch 1 SD cards will just not work out on the new Switch. So just so you got to get new ones, but let's be honest, you're not going to transfer that from the old one, and it's also for better speeds. It's not an SSD, but it's the next best thing for a system like this. So storage upgrades are kind of like expected. But 256 though internal right off the bat. That's awesome to see.
Let's hope that the new games aren't dramatically bigger
Yeah, let's
to
see
just
how.
offset that.
Yeah, I feel
uh,
like I'm curious like what their flags like the one big game that they even tease in the teaser for the console, Mario
mhm.
World. I'd be curious to see how big of a game that would turn out to be.
Yeah, and the last like big thing hardware wise that we can get into is the dock, which I found kind of the most interesting, honestly.
Yeah.
It's a new design. It's a little bit more, oval shaped, kind of, and it seems a bit more beefy this time. Which,
I mean, it has internals. I believe the
mhm,
old Switch dock was just a plastic thing that had like ports on it, but
mhm,
this one has ports as well as obviously 4K output to the TV, and it has a fan so that it actually like
mhm.
regulates heat. It's not just a hunk of plastic for your Switch to sit in while it's docked or charging.
Uh-huh. But
Because
yeah.
I mean, especially like I mean, throwback to when the Switch One came out. Remember when like there was like heating problems? So like if like your dock was like squished in any way and it like kind of squeezed the Switch too much, it would like cause the heat would cause distortions on the Switch display. That was a huge controversy at
Mm.
the when it first came out.
Yeah, and also in addition to the 4K that you mentioned, they also, surprisingly to me, made mention of higher frame rates that the dock and the Switch 2 are able to output to. So you can.
Yeah.
It's going to be on a game to game basis. We'll get into it with a couple that talked about it, but they were showcasing some games with 4K 60 like graphics modes and 1080p 120 FPS performance modes. So honestly, 120 FPS on a Switch is
That's
incredible.
incredible. Yeah. Yeah. I cannot say like I mean I'm playing on the Steam Deck and the games that I'm playing are not running at 120 even if I'm playing older games, which again what we'll talk about at the second half of the show. So yeah, no, 120 FPS. Look, the thing is Nintendo games. It's gonna sound a little like simple, but like trust me, the like I just played a first party game from another system that was not optimized for the system I was playing on, right? So Nintendo games are often well optimized for their consoles, and so I wouldn't say that 120 FPS is what you're going to expect on like Cyberpunk 2077, right? But you can
Mhm.
expect it on any. I think it's fair to say you can expect it on any major first party release like Metroid Prime 4
Mhm.
coming out soon. So stuff like that is what I think where you should kind of know what you're getting into. Don't expect 120 FPS to be kind of a universal thing. It's just
Mhm.
capable of it. It's kind of like how the PS5 will say capable of 8K or whatever, but it's like okay, cool.
I'll enjoy watching my 3 YouTube videos that are rendered in
Yeah,
8K.
yeah, exactly. Now, okay, we got the hardware stuff out of the way. Now, let's get into the pricing because obviously this is well, actually, you know what? There's one more hardware thing actually that I think we should talk about, which is the idea of game keys. Now, this is not a new concept, but it is something that you can find on the Nintendo's website when you're kind of looking at the kind of everything that's going on with the Switch 2. And it's essentially a little banner at the bottom that says game keys. Some physical games are available as a game key card. Insert a game key card to download the full game to your system, and then you can play the game by starting it like a standard physical game card. So essentially, the game key that you're buying is just it's essentially like I have a copy of Wolfenstein Youngbloods on the Nintendo Switch, and it is when you open it up, it's empty. It just has a game code inside. It's like that, but instead of just having the game code, there's a cartridge, and the cartridge is kind of lets you download the game. I
Mhm.
would assume, right, like just kind of first reactions to this. I think this it is not as big of a deal as it might sound like. But I know some people are like, this is like DRM version of what maybe like Steam's already been doing, and then it kind of it does kind of devalue physical media a little bit more, right? Because with this, you can still have, you can buy a physical cartridge, you can put it into your system, and if Nintendo's like, actually, we're not that they would do this, but if they're like, actually, this game doesn't, we don't want this game anymore, we're cutting this game from for access, you can't play it anymore, even if you have the cartridge. That's the right,
Mm-hmm.
that's the big thing. I think mostly what this means is for certain games, certain big games, if it's like a large download, that's where the game key will come in. The cartridge won't be able to fit it, so the cartridge just turns into a license that you can kind of get to download the game from the App Store or the eShop. So
Mm-hmm.
that's my read on it. But again, that's kind of first thoughts. We'll see how it is. I mean, there's going to be a lot more about this conversation that we're going to have that turns very much so grim for the kind of state of physical media in 2025. But um, well, actually, let's get to that next. So we got the physical stuff out of the way. Now let's talk about the money, because money is a big factor of what the package will hold and how many people will have access to it. So Nick, well, I got to congratulate you. I think a day or two before the showcase, we actually had a little bit of a prediction of when a few things about like what we predict for the Switch 2.
Mm-hmm.
I was very close. My prediction was I was that the Switch 2 would release on June 6th, and it's actually coming out on June 5th. So June 5th, 2025 is when the Switch 2 will be theoretically out on store shelves. If
Mm-hmm.
that's the case, we'll find out. Um, and it will be costing $449, which is exactly what Nick guessed. So, Nick, you son of a bitch. How dare you? You should have guessed something lower.
Yeah,
Um,
I thank you first of all for the congratulations. It's totally deserved, and I set the price. Not many people
yeah,
know that
Nintendo was listening
Nintendo
to you. Yeah.
they had
Yeah.
no say. It was whatever I said. But I wish it was lower, but I just I had the expectation that it's like, okay, the Switch OLED's 350. If they're gonna market this as like the new Nintendo console, there's no way it's just a $50 price hike. Like this is Nintendo we're talking about, and as we are going to expand upon further, money and discounts does not come easy to this company. So
Yes. Yes. So it's 450. And there's also the new pro cons. There's is it's pro controller that again comes with the new C button as well as the audio jack. That's coming in at 80 or sorry, yeah, $80. And also, I don't know if the original Pro controller had it. I'm not a pro Switch player, to be honest with you. So I don't know if the other one had it, but this one has buttons on the back as well that you can program
it
to kind
does
of
not,
play.
the original one.
Oh, okay, okay. So yeah, this new one has that a little additional feature, which I will admit is actually a pro feature. Like that is helpful to have,
Mm-hmm.
to have mappable buttons on the back for convenience.
And smartly
Um,
labeled. I've never seen another controller do this, but they call it GL and GR, which I'm guessing is grip left and grip right for the button. And
oh
it's
yeah,
like
that's fair.
all of these other, even the PlayStation ones, they're like, it's the PlayStation back buttons, and it's just like
Yeah, yeah,
they just don't really make sense. But I was like, as soon as I saw GLGR, I was like, oh, that's smart, Nintendo. Way to go.
yeah. So that's again the new Pro controller is $80. The Joy Cons are a little bit more expensive at $90
Yeah.
as a pack. Wait, it's a pack, right? It's $90 for both.
It should be, yeah. Because
Yeah,
it's
okay.
currently 80 for the Switch One Joy
Okay.
Cons.
Then there's the camera. I know everyone is so excited to hop on their to get their cameras for the Nintendo Switch 2, and that'll be $50. I was actually before the prices came up, we were kind of throwing around. I thought I was saying like $60, so I think it's relatively close. Relatively a new game's price for the camera. It seems.
Mm-hmm.
The new dock, if you want to buy it individually, is $109 or sorry, $110. Let's just call it even $110.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the games themselves, and we're gonna get to the games in a second. I also want to quickly run through again. This is the most comprehensive. This is your one-stop shop for the Switch 2, right? So I'll also run down some things that are important to note. So there is Nintendo has a list of games that you can read that are Switch games that are not compatible on the Switch 2. So most games, like 98%, they don't have a number, I don't think. But a lot of the games from the Switch are playable on Switch 2. There are some that are not that Nintendo has listed on the website. I'm not going to read them to you, but you can go to the website and see the list. It's a very short list compared to the amount of games that were released on the Switch in general.
Mm-hmm.
But Nintendo's kind of still actively working on how to kind of resolve those. It seems with the developers or the publishers. So that's one thing. Now that there's a hardware as well. So this is a quick list of what the Switch 2 will be compatible with the accessories. So the Switch 1 Joy-Con controllers are compatible. The Switch Pro controllers, the original, is compatible. The new NES controllers, SNES controllers, the N64, the Genesis, all those new ones they're all compatible. The old docks, none of them are compatible. Same thing with the Nintendo Switch original AC adapter. The HDMI cable will also not get you the speeds of the new one as well, because it's not going to be you're not going to get 4K out of those things.
Which those make
SD
sense.
cards, no, 100%. Yeah, the system should come with a nice kind of 4K capable
Cable set.
There we go. Thank you for finishing my sandwiches for me, Nick. We also have the micro SD cards won't work with it. The old GameCube adapter won't work with it, and obviously Joy-Con stuff for the last anything that works with the last Joy-Con, be it the leg straps or the ring con or the charging dock, like none of those will work because obviously the Switch Joy-Con 2 have been redesigned as well.
I actually didn't know about the GameCube one, but that makes sense because the dock doesn't have the old USB ports, right? Is it just the USB-C port?
I believe so. I think so.
I that didn't even occur to me. I was like, yeah, of course, if we'll get into it, but like if they're talking about GameCube stuff, that should work. And then yeah, no, I don't think we saw those old USB ports, and that's exactly what that old adapter uses. So good to know on that one.
Now, we are a gaming show, a weekly gaming show, which obviously you should subscribe to and leave a like because we love talking about video games. But we don't often get political. And ladies and gentlemen, we have to do briefly today, because not only is today the Switch 2 reveal, it was also Liberation Day. And no, nerds, it is not the announcement day for Killzone Remastered or Killzone Liberation Remastered, for the PS5. That is not what today is about. It's about tariffs. President Trump has announced a lot of tariffs, literally probably 2 hours ago, I think. Pretty much everyone's getting fists, right? There's no one's safe. At the very least, you're catching an elbow. Now, according to a report from Bloomberg, what does this mean for the Switch 2? Well, essentially, Nintendo shifted the Switch 2 production from China to Vietnam and Cambodia to avoid tariffs. There are now tariffs there as well. So essentially, the U.S. will tariff products from Vietnam at a 46% rate, and this will heavily impact the end price of what the Switch 2 will be on store shelves in the U.S. I think this is probably a good reason for why it was, full honesty. I'm not just saying this so I can win this competition, irrelevant competition we've had, Nick. But I do think that 400 was probably the original price that they would have gone for before kind of all this stuff happened. And I think 450 is the lowest you'll see this console go for, because of everything that's happening, and it's has to impact the pricing, not just in the U.S. by the way, but kind of globally, because usually, like, it would be weird to have a total, especially with something like the US dollar, to have a totally different kind of value um, compared to other countries, but again, I'm. It also means that probably like in other countries you'll find the Switch at least a little bit cheaper than the US.
Mm.
But we'll find out more about that as it develops, and of course, like I said, we'll talk about them here because, of course, this is a gaming podcast. And back to the games now. All right, now that I've threatened you with doom and gloom, let's talk about these games. Okay, so obviously the Switch kind of by itself affording it, well that's going to be a matter that's a developing story. You got to tune in live, but then there's the games themselves. So Nick, do you want to talk about the price of the game first, or do you want to talk about the games and then we go through?
Let's just we can talk about the price up front because it's not concrete, weirdly.
Yeah.
Essentially it's come out that, well, they're kind of continuing what they started on Switch 1, which is a flexible pricing system on a game-to-game basis. We saw it spike with Tears of the Kingdom. That was their first like $70 Switch 1 game. A lot of their other games kind of stayed at that $59.99 price point here in the US. Some we saw a little bit lower with like a $39.99 kind of pricing scheme. Now it's a similar kind of thing where different games are going to have different prices, just probably more. So we'll get into the whole rundown on the list, but the two main games that Nintendo first party kind of showed off today were Mario Kart World and Donkey Kong Bonanza. And Mario Kart digitally is going to be, what was it, $79.99, and
$80.
Physically apparently it's going to be $89.99, and then Donkey Kong is going to be $69.99. So
$70
for basically for Nintendo first party, you can expect, I guess, either the ones they have extreme faith in, like a Mario Kart or a Zelda. You're probably going to be rubbing up on that higher price point. The rest, you're probably going to be in that $70 like minimum, I would think, unless it's like, a game they don't care about, and then they're going to slap like $50 on that one or whatever.
Yeah. The steep prices ahead for console games. And again, this is another thing that when it comes to physical games, it's just going to be another factor of tension in the coming console generation. Obviously, we're halfway into the PS5 and the Xbox Series XS. More than half, probably like 75% somehow. But
I am curious real quick, with the pricing, the one thing that I've seen pop up today specifically a lot, and I don't mean to keep bringing this up, but a lot of people are like, okay, if Nintendo just bumped their prices, this is giving the clear runway for Rockstar and Take-Two to do $100 GTA 6, which has been kind of like the analyst, speculation on that. What do you think, Sri? Do you think that is an actual possibility now? Or do you think Rockstar will play the more consumer-friendly route and just go with a flat 70?
No, dude. As soon as I saw the prices go up, and we didn't get to react to prices live because we had just hopped off the call, and then like the prices started going up.
They didn't want to share that in the broadcast because they knew that was gonna give them a little funk.
And again, I think that might have also been a thing of like, it was such a these things were changing so suddenly that they probably were like, oh, we don't want to commit to anything on the video. We'll just kind of have it up on the back end when we lock in the price, because that way you can kind of change the pricing literally until the moment you press go live on the page. So anyway, as soon as I read the news, I was like, okay, yep, this is 100% like Rockstar is just grinning from their offices like these fools have no idea what's happening. I do think $100 is kind of where GTA 6 will land. And for me, it's more so interesting because I feel like Sony, like PlayStation's is so immediately jump on this, right? The Ghost of Yotei, I think that's like expected in sometime in August. If if this sticks, it's got to be like, oh yeah, Ghost of Yote, $80, like I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Or at the very, yeah, I don't know. It's going to be very expensive. Now, the one thing I'll say kind of in Nintendo's favor, because I won't say that it's not a lot of money, right? Like that would be crazy. We were paying $60 for games in PS4 generation, and we're now creeping up to 80s and 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And that definitely means that people will not be able to afford certain games. And it also means that there's like, it's like 4 copies of 5 copies of the game, and you're at a console price almost
Mm-hmm.
for depending on what you're getting and everything. So that sucks. But that being said, Nintendo has historically been pretty nice to its employees. Like, they obviously layoffs happen everywhere, but they've been one of the more stable um, studios or like publishers, whatever you want to, like companies in the gaming industry. They've also like been known to like, cut, like give employees bonuses really well, or like cut, managements or like upper level bonuses or salaries to kind of pay for everyone else. Like Nintendo has a good history of that, and I do think that it is it's at least going to the right place. I'll say that much, right?
Mm-hmm.
Regarding where like these incredibly high prices. But that being said, okay, there's always a but when it comes to me. That being said, it's such an interesting precedent that I'm curious to see, not just for like other game studios, how does this impact just the Switch 2 in itself? Because there is so much discussion around this system right now is holy shit, these prices.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a certain percentage of the audience who are diehard Nintendo fans who are like, oh, I'm just going to get this thing day one anyway. They're going to pick up, again, those, what you were saying, Nick, like those kind of titles that they have confidence in, like
Mm-hmm.
Mario Kart World. They'll pick that up regardless.
Yeah.
And so those sales are already confirmed. But for everyone else, I think this is such an interesting point of contention that I think everyone's going to be watching to see where this goes from here.
Mm-hmm. Because yeah, definitely like I brought it up. So like GTA, they are in that same wheelhouse where it's like you could set that at $500 and like maybe you wouldn't sell as many copies, but you're still gonna sell. You're still gonna make a profit on that game, right? No matter what the price is. On the flip side of that, all of the other publishers and stuff that definitely can't get away with that, I'm curious to see how that's going to happen because, we already have, situations like with Ubisoft where people are like, just wait the 6 months and you'll get it for half off. It's like, if they start coming out with $90, like I bet more and more publishers, people are just going to be like, yeah, no, I'll wait. That or they'll adopt the Game Pass model, I guess, and just hope games go on there. So...
yeah, I'd be curious if do you think Nintendo would ever kind of make like obviously they have the Nintendo Switch Online service, right? What is it called?
Nintendo Switch Online.
Okay. Which by the way, that does have some new benefits for the Switch 2. So you can play now if you have Nintendo Switch Online plus expansion pack, you can play GameCube games, which Nick was telling me that there's some expensive games on there, right, Nick? I'll
for sure. Yeah, most of the games that they I mean, GameCube on the secondhand market is like a really hot kind of console to collect for, and comparatively speaking to like original Xbox and PS2, it's I don't know if it was just like lesser print run, less adoption rate at that time. Obviously, the PS2 was the big seller during that generation, but yeah, most of the games that they showed in their kind of lineup are pretty pricey, or at least hold their value still. Let's just talk about that real quick, just so we can slash that out. The three that are coming out at launch for the GameCube functionality are Zelda Wind Waker, F-Zero GX, and Soul Calibur 2. Just off the top of my head, without looking, Wind Waker is still like a $60 to $70 game on the secondhand market. F-Zero
Yeah.
GX is similarly priced. It's like 50 to like 80 any given time. Soul Calibur is a little bit on the cheaper end. That's like a $20 to $30 game usually. But the heavy hitters they have in there are Chibi Robo, Fire Emblem, Path of Radiance, and the Pokemon XD and Coliseum games. Each one of those are at minimum $100. Some of them go over 200 on the secondhand market for like a complete copy. So the one nice thing about this, I mean, yes, you do have to pay for a subscription service and all that to get access to these. You do have to pay for the higher tier of it, but in sort of a roundabout way, it probably is going to save you more money than hunting down a GameCube and getting original NTSC copies of these games.
Now, yeah, so that is, of course, one of the benefits of getting the Nintendo Switch Online service, but it's not necessarily a Game Pass. Do you think that they'll actually do a Game Pass ever?
No.
Or, like a Nintendo Switch. Okay. Yeah, that was also my answer. I just wanted to see if you if you thought any different, because it just doesn't, it wouldn't make sense for Nintendo to do it. They make too much money off the model that they have right now, which does not need that.
I say this with respect. The only people crazy enough to do Game Pass is Xbox.
Yes, yeah. Now, the other benefit you have, which again we're weaving into this is a rocky terrain with this Switch 2 news. We're weaving in and out of topics. I'm surprised I'm still staying on tracks. But so one of the other benefits of the Nintendo Switch Online for Switch 2 is that certain games that are enhanced will be free. Now, I'm not going to say certain games. I'm actually specifically say Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild. I believe those are the ones that were listed on the website, where normally if there's Switch games that are playable on the Switch 2, but then there's enhanced versions of those games that are like specifically engineered to play better on the Switch 2. In the case of, I think, Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, like I believe they go up to 120 frames per second. Right? In one of the modes, I think. But either way, I don't think they confirm the speed. They say
that
one
I don't
smoother.
think that they were vague. You can tell it's running at least 60, and it's definitely improved over Switch 1. They went to specific areas in those games that were notoriously low performance areas.
Yeah.
And it's
very smooth.
Noticeably better, which is good to see.
Yeah. So instead of paying for those upgrades, if you have Switch Online for those specific games, you get them for free. Everything else, you do have to pay some sort of an upgrade price for, even if you have Nintendo Switch Online. So that's another benefit. Now, with that said, that is a majority of the facts about the Switch 2 that we have to talk about. And now we're going to get into the games that were announced or just kind of showcased at the
fun stuff.
1 hour. Yeah, the 1 hour event that they had. And we're going to get into a little bit more of our opinions on stuff. So, with that in mind, Nick, I'm going to start off right off the bat, man. All right, I've been wanting to get this off my chest, okay? The biggest impact, I think, that this will have on physical media collectors or just physical media enthusiasts, I'll say, Nick, is how ugly the game cases look. Holy crap. Have you seen the Switch 2 game cases?
Yes.
It's like they took they're like, first of all, let me just say, the Switch 1 cases I thought were perfect. Like the fact that they were so compact, they had a very nice aesthetic that most games stuck to. Some games broken and looked ugly on the spines, but we don't talk about them. And the fact that like it was the size of the Switch screen, like it was like you could place it on the Switch middle of the, I don't know, the main part of the unit, and it was like the same size. That was so cool. This thing, it takes that, but then now adds like this PlayStation 5 border on top of it that's red, and the cases are also seemingly red, like entirely, not see-through like the old one. And so it just makes this ugly border, and oh boy, I am not a fan of these Switch 2 cases.
It's definitely a thick border on it. I think the one thing that I saw in its defense online that some people were mentioning is that there's definitely no mistaking that is a Switch 2 game if you are on the shelf next to Switch 1 games. So like I can see why they would want to change it for making
It feels
it
like a very Apple move of like, oh man, like we released a new MacBook, but like, how will people know that's the new MacBook Air? Oh yeah, let's add sky blue color to make it cool. And
short.
now that's the exclusive.
Yeah, I saw the pictures of them. Honestly, like, you know me. I'm a huge collector. Like, I take, my games. I have my set thoughts and
Yep.
opinions about
Yep.
them.
Yep. Yep.
Honestly, I don't think it's that bad. Again,
Oh,
I would shrink that border a little bit and get it a little bit like, tighter up. It feels like it's just a big rectangle up at the top. But
yeah.
honestly, like looking at them, I'm like, yeah, I mean, it's fine. And I honestly kind of like the red color scheme because that goes with their logo and everything. Whereas it was
I
just
like
like
the
the
red
spines.
cases,
Mhm.
like because the red cases again, that's kind of like how Switch, the PlayStation 4 cases and the
Mhm.
PS5 colors are blue, right? Like, and that's like that their
Sure.
color. I'm totally down for that. It's just the way that red, like if we're just talking about design, I I the I do think the PS5 is a little too like jarring. Like I think they did the same thing we're talking about. Where like, how do we differentiate that from the PS4 design, which I think was just perfect. Like I think that was a good game cover
Mhm.
design. They're like, oh, let's make it white instead of blue. But at the very least, you get contrast with it. This is just so much of that red seeping down.
Mhm.
And I don't know. I don't think that the center placed Switch two, like just the entire icon of Switch and then the two. I don't know, something about it. It's not scratching the right itch for me. But
Mhm.
hey, results may vary. You might like it. You might find it beautiful on your shelf. Maybe if you have a white bookshelf, maybe these things will pop like crazy. So, assuming you like the Switch 2 game cases, now let's talk about what games you're gonna buy. There's quite a list of games that they announced or just kind of showcased, like I said. So, we're gonna just go through we're just gonna go through the show pretty much in order, right, Nick? Is that what we
Yep.
got here?
Yeah, I
Okay.
went ahead and threw it in essentially view order, whatever they showed first. So,
All right, perfect. So they started off with Mario Kart World, which is again what they teased and what we kind of already briefly talked about. Nick, what did you think about this one?
I am not a massive Mario Kart fan. I have played all of the games at this point. Um,
I don't
but
like them, but I've played all of
but it's in a
them.
very casual relationship, right? It's like I've played
Yeah,
through the cups like once, made sure I came in first place, and then I'm done with most of them. Mario Kart 8
yeah,
Deluxe, I played a little bit longer, only because I would take that on road trips and play with friends or whatever. So, um,
yeah.
basically, I'm not like a diehard Mario Kart person. I'm not putting hundreds and upon hundreds of hours into these games. That said,
But
I
but
think
this one,
this trailer it gets somebody like me excited about Mario Kart because I think it's really easy to see the ambition with this one, and that it's not just another kind of Mario Kart game. Whereas, like,
yeah,
the entire series has kind of followed this formula of, you have your Grand Prix, you have your time trials, you have your multiplayer, and you kind of just race on these courses, 4 different courses per cup or whatever. Sometimes you have like mirror mode and like battle mode and stuff included in there. But for the most part, the games have been relatively the same, except for, changing art styles or adding in a mechanic or two here and there. Uh,
yeah.
Mario Kart World is fundamentally a different type of Mario Kart game, which I really appreciate. And we were kind of making jokes about it, but I do think Nintendo definitely was taking some cues from like the Forza Horizon games with this, in that this is essentially an open world Mario Kart game. It's, as the title would make you think, it's set on one giant map, and basically you still have the cups and Grand Prix thing with the 4 racetracks, but now the tracks are all in this world and you can drive to and from these different tracks.
Hmm. Hmm.
There's free mode, like free exploration. So like if you're not in a
Hell yeah.
race, you can just drive off the road and go over to like explore the hillside, or like they show going through like a desert. There's like a wintry environment. There's your standard kind of grassy hills and stuff like that. Your typical kind of Mario themes that you would expect to be in a game like this. And then they also have like knockout mode, so it's kind of like, you know, their Mario Kart battle royale version.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Where you can, you know, go from one part of the map to the other part of the map, and if you're not in a certain placing, essentially, by the time you hit a checkpoint, the people in the back get eliminated. So they're doing a lot of really interesting things here, and that's I don't want to keep, you know, hogging up all the time on Mario Kart. We have a lot to get through, but they also showed in the trailer new mechanics like wall riding and like grinding on rails,
and like riding a rope or a cable cart or a cable line.
And like there's even a bit where like one of the racers drives into the back of like a semi truck, and like it like starts driving into the road and everything. So it'll be interesting to see how that impacts things. So not only is it bigger in scope, not only is there a lot more fundamentally different about this game, but they're also adding in new mechanics, new customization options. There's 24 racers now, which is like a huge difference compared to the other games. So for somebody like me that's not like a diehard Mario Kart fan, you just watch the trailer and it's like, oh, they're actually doing something new and interesting with Mario Kart, which is pretty cool to see.
Yeah, no, I'm also not a Mario Kart guy though. Personally, I've not even played like all of them. I've played like 2 Mario Karts in my time, but this one actually looks really interesting. Like it actually was, you know, it sort of, you know, it does what the Forza Horizon thing does, right? Like so, it's kind of, it just gives you more of a playground to play in, while you're kind of have the familiar mechanics of a Mario Kart game. And then they announced.
Wait, should notice or should say this is available at launch. This is going to be like their big first launch title. Yep.
Then there's Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour. Now, while we were watching this, I said, "Oh, hey, this is like Astrobot came." It was how it was kind of came packaged. Not Astrobot, the one that came out last year. The one that came pre-packaged with the PS5 as essentially a tech demo for everything that the Switch, the DualSense 5 just DualSense controller can do. And it was, you know, a lot of people loved it. It was not just a technical showcase, but there was a lot of love that went into it. And so it was this cool experience that it was just free because you bought the console. That is not the case with Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour. It is essentially I think it's a little bit less rudimentary because it literally has places. It's a manual. You know, you go up and it's like, hey, this is what this can do. And then occasionally you'll also have side missions and stuff, kind of like, oh, you know, use this feature to scrape ice off of a thing or whatever. But it is paid, so it's not gonna come pre-bundled. You have to pay for it separately on the eShop.
We don't know how much.
We don't know how much it is just yet. But you got to pay extra for it. And again, it's such a Nintendo move because like, why is this not...
days of Wii Sports?
Right? Yeah, exactly. Where it's such a weird situation because, you know, we can't compare the Wii and how that launched, but the Wii launched with Wii Sports, and you bought one package, you could go home, you get games to play on it, and it was so good that you could spend honestly a good month or two just playing that and not realize that you were missing out on other stuff. Meanwhile, you got this thing which is so much more expensive. Each of the games are more expensive that by the time you buy one game, you're like, all right, well, that's gonna be it for me. There's nothing else I can do.
And it doesn't even really have like the charm of like other games that they didn't pack in. Like, you know, for whatever people think about 1-2 Switch, right? Like that was not a pack-in game, but at least like it had a bit of like energy behind it. Same with Nintendo Land. Nintendo Land was kind of bundled in with a lot of Wii U's, but it was also a separate game. But like it had that Nintendo kind of energy behind it. This literally does just look like a interactive instruction manual for the Switch 2. And it's like, I don't know who's going to buy this. Certainly not children that are getting their Switch 2.
Mom, can I have the Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour, please?
It's just a weird decision. Unless this costs like $15, like tops. Like I don't really know what this would be.
They kind of made the switch to can't believe this it took us had this long for me to accidentally say the word switch. Um Not the Switch. Then they talked about how there was going to be Nintendo Switch 2 versions of games, Nintendo Switch 2 editions of games. And they gave a few examples. We already talked about Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. But they also announced that Kirby and the Forgotten Land, which was the Switch game, will have a Switch 2 edition that also comes with a DLC called Star-Crossed World. And I believe, Nick, that is it a launch title or no? Oh, no, it might not be a launch title, but it's coming out this year. It's a first initial window launch. So
Mm-hmm.
I believe I can check actually. August. So it comes out in August, 2025. So pretty much they're lining up to do one big game for the first 3 months. We'll get to that in just a second. But Super Mario Party Jamboree is the other game that they talked about. And this is Super Mario Party Jamboree plus Jamboree TV, which is going to retail for, again, $80 to get this thing, the Switch 2 edition. This looked interesting because along with the regular Mario Party stuff that you're kind of used to with the SMP Jamboree. Oh, snap. I just came up with that. It also has Switch 2 exclusive games, some of which include that mouse feature that the Joy-Con will have, which I guess we didn't even really touch on that the functionality of this and what's capable of. But I guess we'll maybe get into that a little bit more while we talk about some of these games. But there's that mouse feature, and then if you have a camera, you can have like cutouts that are placed into the game, and then like you can have live reactions of what's going on, like your reaction from the camera.
It's pretty funny. I was watching MinMax react to it, and I think it was Jacob Geller on there said, "I can't believe Nintendo's bringing back the Kinect." And I was like, it really is kind of like that. Just like,
you know what's funny? It's when you think about it, right? The Xbox One, dare I say, it's proving itself to be a console that's ahead of its time, or maybe it's just because it was the wrong person to do it. But Xbox One both had a Kinect, had the camera features and stuff. It also had digital like game ownership, right? Like it was like, oh, the game disc is just a license. You put it in, and then the game is on your system. It's digital. Both of those things were so fucking panned. They're like, all right, let's ditch the Switch, and that is not at all how games work anymore. Like they totally fundamentally changed how the Xbox One functioned because of the critical reception of it initially. And here we are, and people are like, finally, Nintendo's done it. It's innovation. But yeah, so it's kind of built into the gameplay where it is pretty cool, like kind of green screen work in terms of how the game will cut out what you look like, from your background, and then paste you into the game. But yeah, those are the three big enhanced editions that they talked about specifically. Oh, actually, and then there's two new ones that are going to be coming out of new games that are not yet out on the Switch either. Nick, I'll let you talk about the first one here because you probably have more to say about it than I do.
Yeah, Metroid Prime 4. We saw this in the Switch 1 Direct last week that I don't think we really got to talk about on the podcast. But this is all Switch 2. Like, most of anything that was talked about in there is pretty much showing up here. So,
yeah. And I think it would have been a safe bet to just assume that this was coming to the Switch 2 anyway,
But yeah, they showed Metroid Prime 4, obviously a pretty big game that they have coming up on the horizon. And Metroid's been gaining in popularity with every release. So I'm expecting this to probably be one of the better selling games in the franchise, just like Metroid Dread was a couple years ago.
100%. It's going to be like, the headline, Metroid Prime 4 best launch of the series or whatever.
But yeah, Switch 2 specific features. This was one of the only games that they specifically called out a 4K 60 quality mode and a 1080p 120 FPS mode. So you do get a performance and quality mode with Prime 4, in addition to mouse controls, which is what you just mentioned and was heavily alluded on that we didn't really touch on when we were talking about the hardware. But yeah, the Joy-Cons, both of them, can be used as mouse controllers, I guess is how you would call it, or just mice.
Yeah, but specifically the Prime 4, you use one on the bottom and the other one you kind of hold normally to move around.
Yeah, so yeah, you can use that for mouse aiming, which is really cool. Nintendo's obviously had like gyro aiming in a lot of their games from like Wii U.
In Breath of the Wild, I mean.
Yeah, Breath of the Wild had it. So they've had like sort of alternate aiming schemes for some of their games, but to just have like straight up a mouse to be able to interface with, I think that's going to be pretty big, especially for getting more shooters on Switch. There are obviously shooters on the Switch currently, but like
you can play Doom on Switch.
Exactly. So like I think it's going to go a long way for getting that, and also more like PC specific kind of games on Switch too, which I think is really cool.
Yeah. And then there's also Pokemon Legends ZA, which I believe they didn't mention specific frame rates or anything. I think 60 FPS was what I later heard kind of people talking about. But it's Pokemon Legends ZA, guys. I mean, I don't have much else to say about this one. I'm not.
It looks like it's supposed to be running on Switch 2. I'll say that. It doesn't look like it's supposed to run on Switch 1.
Yes, I agree. And even Prime 4, like comparing, like it looks nice on its own. The really like running it that smoothly is what's kind of cool to see. But the specifically comparing it to what we saw last week, it's like, oh, actually, you can tell here that there's a quality difference between the hardware. Now, with that said, there's also upgrade packs exist for current owners of certain Switch games. Again, there's a bonus. There's an upgrade price that you have to pay for. Oh my gosh! Now let's talk about one game that's similar to how ARMS used, exclude like that the fact that you could take off your Joy-Cons and use them individually as its key feature for gameplay design. This is another game that's key feature is designed off of the mouse maneuvers of the Switch 2. It's Dragon Drive. This is a wheelchair basketball game that's kind of a competitive multiplayer game. And you have to use the mice or mouse, whatever, Joy-Con mouse, to literally swipe to kind of push yourself, in your wheelchair. And you can kind of pass the ball, shoot it at the hoop. This feels so no part of this game looked interesting to me, and the fact that it has, what Nick was kind of saying earlier about that Switch welcome tour or whatever it's called. ARMS had character, right? Switch, the 1-2 Switch, say what you will about it, had character. I can't say the same about everybody 1-2 Switch, but 1-2 Switch had this personality. ARMS had this vibrancy to it. This looks like these kids are in a prison being forced. It's like a death race in wheelchairs for basketball. Like
they all like look the same. They have like gray pads and helmets on, and it's it's a very weird game, man. Like
I cannot see how this is gonna. How this will launch successfully, but
if you need any sort of like standpoint on this game, I was also not to just keep shouting out people, but I was watching Easy Allies reactions too.
Yeah, let's go for it. Yeah,
and the one guy Don, when this trailer was up, he said, and these are Switch 2 graphics, yes. And so I think that kind of summed it up once I heard that for me pretty well. This looks like a weird one. It looks like very basic, like Rocket League influence, maybe, but like without any of the fun of Rocket League and the character, like you mentioned. So, yeah, there's not a whole lot to say about this one. Definitely not a system seller for me.
Yes, I agree.
Interesting, I guess, if we want to say one thing about it, interesting that you can use both the mice, and they're trying to do something interesting with that. I'll give them credit on that one. But
yeah, for sure. We can agree on that. So we'll see how this one goes. I believe it's slated for summer 2025, so sometime around the launch window after June 5th. So, yeah. All right, now Nick, I'll let you talk about this next one once again, because you're the hype man here, man.
Elden Ring Tarnished Edition,
Tarnished.
which
Okay.
is almost an underhanded compliment or something, just being like, this is the compromised version of Elden Ring. um, but yeah, Elden Ring, they got it running. You can tell it's running not on PlayStation, Xbox, or PC, but it honestly doesn't look that bad. To give From Software and Nintendo some credit, it looks like a completely playable version of Elden Ring. And yeah, this was honestly not at all a shock. I think everybody was kind of expecting the biggest game of 2 years ago, 3 years ago to show up here.
Yep. Is this so? Here's the thing, right? And I was curious to talk about this with you. Part of my thing, if I'm gonna give myself a compliment, talking so much with Nick, I have to hold back some conversation so I can have it on the podcast, right? Like, so I'm inciting conversation. So here, Nick, I meant to ask you this earlier, but I know for when you look at something like Tony Hawk Pro Skater, which we're not going to talk about this episode. No time for this in this show. It's a game you'll pick up even if it's on another system, just to have it, the convenience of having it and playing it. Is that what you're going to do for Elden Ring? Like, the Switch 2 version, whenever you end up picking up the Switch 2, you're just gonna have Elden Ring on just for the hell of it, or is that not?
No, because of the length of that game, and it's hard for me to want to go back to these like 100-hour games. Like even something like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, like I've done my playthrough, like I'm gonna find it very hard to do a second playthrough of either of those games. Same with Elden Ring. The one kind of weird exception I had to this, outside of Tony Hawk, like you mentioned, was I bought the BioShock collection on Switch because I was like, maybe someday I would want to take a road trip and play some BioShock. But again, those are like very short games, and so it's not something that I would definitely be committing to. I also wanted to mention with Elden Ring, I did see online this Tarnished Edition. It does come with the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC included. So it is going to be like a full version of Elden Ring.
One-stop shop.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, maybe if it was cheap and I was like, oh, Elden Ring, like, sure, I'll get a Switch version of that. But chances of that happening.
You think there's a chance that Night Rain will come to this thing? I mean, they didn't announce it or anything. It's just a purely hypothetical, but... For those of you who don't know, Night Rain is the multiplayer Elden Ring that come out next month. Yeah, next month.
Yeah, tech-wise, I don't see any reason why it wouldn't be able to, unless the thing that we need to figure out is if Nintendo's internet infrastructure gets any improvements here. Like, if it just is still a laggy, horrible mess to interface with, then maybe they would pass on bringing it. But with like engine or graphics wise or like gameplay wise, I don't see why Night Rain wouldn't be able to run on Switch if Elden Ring base would be able to.
Yeah. Now, next up, we have some quick hitters because I don't have much to say about some of these. Mm-hmm. We got Hades 2, Street Fighter 6, which comes with specifically amiibos that look pretty cool.
For sure. One of the only mentions of amiibo in this entire broadcast, and it was for
surprised me. Just any mention of amiibo was not on my bingo card, but here we are. But they were like really like nice color and cool amiibos though. We also had Daemon X Machina, a game that I 100% was like, oh yeah, Nick just made that shit up. But no, that's the name of the game. This is Titanic Scion, and again, I don't know much about this one, guys.
Yeah, it's like a do you have anything? Action game. The first one, the only reason that I know this is that the first one was a Switch exclusive for a while, and then eventually it got ported to.
He's
PC
a fan. He's platinumed it. All right.
Also,
speaking of platinums, please, Nintendo, give us some trophies of some sort, man. Call them achievements. Call them Nintendo crack coins. I don't know, man. Just give me something.
I have a funny story about Daemon X Machina that just popped into my head. So I've never played this, and I have to say, spoiler alert for No More Heroes 3. If anybody's about to play that.
Okay. Yeah.
But there's a bit at the end of the game in No More Heroes 3 where you're up against the final boss or whatever, and a mech suit comes out of a portal. And both No More Heroes and Daemon X Machina were published by Marvelous. And your character, Travis Touchdown, in that moment literally goes like, is that a Arsenal mech suit from Daemon X Machina? And that's, that's kind of the level we're operating on with Daemon X Machina here.
Hell yeah. Okay, cool. All right, so next up we have Split Fiction. Nick and I are currently making our way through this one, not together, but just, cooperatively. So we'll talk about that maybe later. We don't have much to say about Split Fiction right now, but it's cool that it makes sense that it's a game that comes to the Switch too. Madden and EA Football Club, or FC, whatever the hell it's called, they're both coming to the Switch 2 as well. As a brief kind of announcement video. There's no gameplay or anything like that, just kind of a, hey, this is
notable happening. In that Madden, I don't believe, was on Switch previously. FIFA has been, but I think this is the first time that Madden's coming over.
Yep. And then a Hogwarts Legacy is, I think this is an enhanced version, right? I don't think it's just a 1-for-1.
Yeah. Because there is a Switch version.
Yeah, there's an enhanced version of Hogwarts Legacy coming out. Obviously, with just improved performance, probably. And then we have Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3+4. We got another trailer for it, which makes total sense. And then, on a moment that totally blew Nick and I away, all right, it was like a 5-second cut, but it was a tease at a SpongeBob crossover map. And man,
so real quick, I have to put a little possible dampener on this.
Oh, fuck. Okay, here we go.
Obviously, you and I, big SpongeBob guys. I obviously popped off in our little, watch party. This is possibly not a full map. I saw some people online. Yeah, it's possibly a secret area in the Skater Island map that you can access. They basically showed it in the trailer where, like, if you jump off the pirate ship at a certain spot, it'll take you to this, like, side area, which is a thing in Tony Hawk games where you access, like, a secret small room. And if you look at it, like, if you pause the footage, it does just kind of look like a little area in there. So,
not a full map.
Possible dampener there, but still really cool and hype, to be honest.
Yep. But no, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3+4 is coming out soon, and so it makes sense it's coming to the new and improved Nintendo hardware. Speaking of new and improved, we got Hitman World of Assassination, a series that I have experience with. I played Hitman 3, and that's
nice.
That's all my experience, actually.
I played the demo for one of them. That's all I've played for the new ones.
It's really awesome, and I've been meaning to go back and play through the other ones, but probably not on the Switch 2, just out of...
To be safe.
I don't know, that's not... yeah, but... that's coming, and they also kind of replayed the announcement trailer for the IO Interactive Project 007 game, which has been, it was like 4 years ago at this point that it was announced.
Yeah.
And so we got literally the same thing
by that. Like, I was kind of hoping that we'd get at least something new. It was literally just the trailer again, which was like, man.
And even the trailer is just nothing. It's just the music with IO Interactive, and then it goes to Project 007. That's the and it's iconic barrel shot. That's all you got in that entire reveal. So not much to go off of there, but I'll be interested to see how that works. Bravely Default Flying Fairy HD Remaster is also coming out for Switch 2, along with Yakuza 0 Director's Cut, which Nick, you got hype about this one.
Just because my friend Shane's been bugging me to play Yakuza 0 for so long, and I say bugging in a fun way, like I keep telling him I'm gonna play it and then never do. So this is just cool to see like a director's cut version of this come out. There's new cutscenes that are in this version, so it'll be curious to see if that gets a wider release on other consoles or if this is just a Switch 2 exclusive kind of thing. But just Yakuza's definitely, they've popped the cork on those games coming over to Switch. So I would expect to see many Yakuza games coming over for the next several directs over the next 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, they're great at porting over there. As of now, the Sega's website currently states the Yakuza Zero Director's Cut will be coming out on the Nintendo Switch 2, and it's actually a launch title, so it comes out on June 5th, 2025. So there you go. Speaking of get hype, this is one that Nick was super hyped about, Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment, because, as they say, Nick, it's the imprisoning war, or something like that. I forgot actually the name. This is a prequel to Tears of the Kingdom. And truth be told, neither of us were too hype about it, to be honest. But we're not Hyrule Warriors guys.
It's a Warriors game. It's a Muso. The Age of Calamity Muso, the Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, that one, they kind of marketed it as like a prequel, almost in a certain way, a similar way to this one. But based on people that played it, I personally did not play it, but based on what I heard from people that had, that game actually ended up being almost like an alternative, like history like thing. So it wasn't like exactly like a canon, prequel to the game. So maybe, go into this one knowing that that a similar thing could happen, or maybe they were like, this one, we have an actual story to tell. It is a co-development again with Koei Tecmo and Nintendo, so who knows. But yeah, it's going to be more Warriors grindy gameplay.
Yeah. So specifically, as a kind of a quick update on that. So the description for Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment is as follows, and there's a word or two that I think Nick will want to pay attention to. This is the newest title in the Hyrule Warriors series and is developed by Koei Tecmo with support from Nintendo. The game features epic battles against hordes of enemies as it tells the untold story from Hyrule's distant past of the imprisoning war that ultimately led to the events of The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Fans of the Legend of Zelda series and players of both Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom can experience the thrill of battle and this canonical tale featuring Princess Zelda, King Rauru, and other familiar characters fight for Hyrule's future when Hyrule Warriors 2 comes out on Switch 2 this winter.
Okay, so they're actually outright saying that this is canon.
Yes, seems so.
A bit more interesting then, if I'm being honest. But
now
I've played 2 Muso games. I played the original Hyrule Warriors, and I played Persona 5 Strikers. And I will say that the games are a bit more fun if it is in a realm and
world
lore that you care about.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a certain point after like 7 or 8 hours where you're like, man, I'm just keep running and swinging my sword. Like that is what I am doing in this game. So
Yep. We already talked about the GameCube stuff, but that was what was announced next after the Hyrule Warriors. And then we kind of keep going. We have Deltarune Chapter 1 through 4. This is kind of set in the Undertale or is it set in the universe or the creators of Undertale? Or both.
I think the trailer says it's like a companion game or a sister game.
Okay.
It's kind of set in the same universe. Like you'll see like characters from Undertale, but I think they're maybe in different roles or something like that. I've only played the first chapter of this, so
okay.
I don't know much about it, unfortunately. But they did say that chapter 3 and 4, which have been in development for a while, those are like new chapters. They will be launching with chapter 1 and 2. Yep.
And then we have Borderlands 4. It was one of those first-person shooters that Nick was talking about earlier.
Showing up in every showcase possible right now.
So you got to have a Randy Pitchford jump scare occasionally just to get you off,
I like Borderlands, man, but it's just like every single thing is just like, hey, we're bringing Borderlands out, and it's just like, cool.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if it's look. Okay, there's 2 quick things. Let me jump back real fast and say that before the show began, we were kind of hypothesizing about what games, maybe theorizing about what games we would see, and I was like, well, Call of Duty, Black Ops 6. Like what do we expect from the Switch 2? Borderlands 4 was not one of those games. But it makes sense. As soon as I saw it, I was like, okay, yeah, this is the game that's going to be. Gearbox is really pushing for it. But that being said, I don't know about you, Nick, and I'm not going to speak for the general. I'm not a Borderlands fan, right? So for me, I've played like maybe 4 or 5 hours of Borderlands 1, an hour of Borderlands 3, and that's my entire experience with the series. And every time, so that's to say that my excitement for Borderlands 4 isn't very high. but every time I hear the same like it's the same Pitchford. See what I did there? For the game. And every time I hear it, I'm like, it feels a little bit more disingenuous this time. Like, it's like, oh, I've heard this. Like the first time you hear it, like, they really want, like, they're passionate about this. They're rebooting it. It's, like they want to build it from the ground up. It's this whole thing. And then now I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, sure, dude. I mean,
well, it's definitely getting more iterative too, because like there was a fairly big gap between Borderlands 2 and 3, because they made like I think a new engine, or like they moved from Unreal 3 to 4 for it.
Sure.
And I just, maybe it was just I had other stuff going on at the time in my life, but it was like it felt like a pretty big gap between those games. And then now, since then, we've had Borderlands 3, we've had Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, and now we're into Borderlands 4, and it's like it's just Borderlands. Like,
yeah. So Borderlands, just because we love to go on tangents in this podcast, Borderlands 1 came out in 2009. Borderlands 2, do you want to guess, Nick?
2012, I think.
Dang, you nailed it. 2012. And then what the Borderlands? God damn. Yeah. So Borderlands 3 was 2019. However, in between that, they had the DLC Borderlands. They had the pre-sequel. They had Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. Or no, sorry, Tiny Tina's Dragon Keep, Assault on Dragon Keep. They had that one. 2014, they had the spin-off game Tales from the Borderlands as well, from Telltale. And then so since 2019 though, when Borderlands 3 came out in 2022, we had Tiny Tina's Wonderlands and New Tales from the Borderlands in 1 year. So,
and we got two games the movie.
Back to back. And we can't forget the movie. I mean, yeah, absolutely. So, all those said, Borderlands 4 is everywhere. Not very excited about it. Even seeing it, it does look decent on the Switch too, though. Like it doesn't.
Again, that's the thing. It's like the game doesn't look bad. It just doesn't. It doesn't stand out as being particularly interesting at this time.
Yes. And then there's Civilization 7, a game that I'm not personally a Civ guy myself.
Same.
I prefer to shun myself away from Civilization generally and play video games. That's why we're talking here. But there's also, like, one of the things that's interesting about this one is, again, it uses the mouse. So with a game like Civilization, where there's a lot of menu intensive game, you can now use essentially a mouse to navigate them, like on PC, which is a cool way to introduce a new kind of that generation into almost like PC gaming. It's like, oh, you have that level of game, but you're running it on a handheld console essentially. So yeah, cool. Civ 7. And then this was like a back-to-back little 2K announcement spree. So they had Borderlands 4, Civ 7. They also announced the official they gave official word that WWE 2K and NBA 2K will be coming to Switch 2 as well. Ladies and gentlemen, earlier in this podcast, I was talking about how you can go back and watch the Nintendo Switch 2 reveal event and, see what they had to say. But you had to have been there to experience certain moments, okay? One of those moments started with Survival Kids. First of all, very generic name. Not SEO optimized, I'd imagine.
I have something interesting to share real quick about this. It literally just popped into my head because I was like, I feel like that name sounds familiar to me. Survival Kids, this is coming from Konami. It's a seemingly multiplayer kind of, survival crafting kind of game. This is actually either a sequel or a remake of a Game Boy Color game of the same name called Survival Kids.
Oh, crap.
It was It was a game that years ago, whenever I was like looking up lists of like, best games on certain consoles, Survival Kids came up on Game Boy Color, and I was like, oh, I'd be interested to get that. But kind of like what we were talking about with the GameCube games, I think it's like a pretty pricey game on Game Boy Color. And
came out in 1999.
Not sure if this is
like called. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, not sure if this is like a remake or a reboot or whatever, but apparently connected.
Yeah, it was called Stranded Kids in Europe and Survival Kids Kotua no Bokensha in Japan. And it came out for the GBC, baby. Also by Konami back in the day. So, oh, cool. I had no idea that game existed. So, okay. So Survival Kids, again, I'll stick with my point that it doesn't feel like a very SEO optimized title.
No.
It was playing this trailer, And then all of a sudden, live for everybody watching, both on YouTube and Twitch, it froze. The visuals froze for just on a random frame of them like saying like it has crafting, you know. And while we were just staring at this frozen screen, you know, like chats like, whoa, what's going on? Like, this is crazy. And we're like, is it us? Like, is our internet down? And then we were refreshing to see, you know, if the stream was coming back up. And then at a point, we're like, okay, the stream is just down. We have to just bear with it. And so all you can do is listen. And while we're listening, they mention Enter the Gungeon 2. And then, you know, I completely missed Starseeker Astroneer Expeditions. And then I briefly heard them go, and this is Night City. And I was like, the Cyberpunk is being announced for the Switch too, as well as Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade. And that was the game where the stream essentially fixed itself. So for pretty much 3 announcements, we were going in blind. We were just listening and picturing the game, which is funny because Nick, I know you were very excited about one of those games.
Yeah, Enter the Gungeon 2.
Seeker, Enter the Gungeon 2.
Man, what a shame that got interrupted.
It was robbed.
That it was robbed of that moment. Gungeon is such a good game. I've talked about it on the previous iteration of the podcast, I believe. It is a 2D pixel art. The original one is a 2D pixel art roguelike bullet hell shooter, essentially. And it is my favorite roguelike. It was one of the first ones that I played, so that might, you know, play into that a little bit. Sure. But it is such a addictive gameplay loop. It has the right amount of randomization kind of things and secrets to find for a roguelike. And they had like a spin-off game called Exit the Gungeon. Well, they've actually had 2 spin-offs, if I'm being accurate here. They had Exit the Gungeon, which was an Apple Arcade game that was a different type of
Apple Arcade.
Yeah, it was like a different type of 2D. The Enter the Gungeon's like a top-down 2D. This was like a side-scroller 2D, and you're on like an elevator, and it's like wave-based and stuff. It's also much simpler. It's not as, you know, dynamic in the randomization and all that.
Right.
Then they also have a light gun shooter called Enter the Gungeon House of the Gun Dead that's exclusive to arcade cabinets. So that one I've unfortunately not played. I haven't had the opportunity to find one of those out in the wild. But yeah, this is a full-on sequel, though, to Enter the Gungeon, a new roguelike, still bullet hell shooter, but this time in 3D. And man, like it's a very short trailer. They're still in development on it, but if the possibilities aren't exciting and it gets the mind racing at what kind of, you know, interesting gameplay stuff they can do with it being in 3D now, what new weapons and synergies can come about that, what new characters and boss fights they can have now. So yeah, this was definitely like, it might not be everybody's like most excited thing, but this was a really hype announcement for me personally.
Yeah. And you missed it.
Had to go back later.
Was listen. Yeah. Only thing I'll mention about one of these games that we kind of missed was that Cyberpunk 2077 doesn't look as bad as I assumed it would look. So that was kind of interesting. And again, it's not a game that I would go back to on the Switch 2 by any means. But it's cool that a whole, you know, like the Nintendo kids will now get a chance to play through Cyberpunk 2077 and, you know, get sex from Pan Am, you know. That's a possibility now. All right, now this is going to be before we get to the highlights of the show for some people, right? The biggest surprises. We have a montage, and I am going to be giving these games the amount of time that they were given on the show. Okay, right off the fucking path. Kunitsugami, Path of the Goddess, Hollow Knight Silksong, Story of Seasons Grand Bazaar, Goodnight Universe, 2 Point Museum, Wild Hearts S, Witchbrook, Puyo Puyo Tetris S, Rune Factory Guardians of Azuma, Marvel Cosmic Invasion, Star Wars Outlaws, Nobunaga's Ambition Awakening Complete Edition, Fast Fusion, Shadow Labyrinth, Raidu Remastered The Mystery of the Soulless Army, No Sleep for the Konami is Date also part of that name?
Konami Date.
Date, fuck. AI, the Somnium Files, Reanimal, Fortnite, Arcade Archives 2, Ridge Racer, Professor Layton in the New World of Steam, Tamagotchi Plaza, and Humans Fall Flat 2.
Really shocking to see Hollow Knight Silksong just get the slot in the montage.
5 seconds of gameplay, and you know that those nerds over there are like eating that up. Oh, 5 seconds. But reconfirmed that it is 2025 release date, so anytime now. Silksong is going to be out. And Wild Hearts, a game that I honestly forgot that it was still up. For some reason, I thought that game came and went already, but no, it seems it's still going. And this stands for Switch.
Yeah. A lot of the games in the montage were games like we mentioned earlier that were announced at the previous Switch Direct. So pretty obvious we were going to see them here.
And then, ladies and gentlemen, we had 3 games left in the show, and what a combination of 3 games. The first is a FromSoft game. All right, well, let's just rip the Band-Aid right off. It's a FromSoft game that had the vibes of Bloodborne were all over this thing right from the dialogue, right? Like just the opening frame, the dialogue. It was like, oh shit, this is Bloodborne 2 for Switch.
And it's so funny because like from trailers, especially for games directed by Miyazaki, they are almost formulaic at this point. You have, the soft-spoken, like, maiden-like lady. You have close-up shots of hands and fingers and stuff like that. Yeah. It's like, I almost clocked it immediately with the soft violin, and it's just like, is this a From Software trailer? And lo and behold, there goes that big white logo.
Okay, so here's the thing, right? I know there's going to be so many people excited about this game, and trust me, I was too. I'm a sucker for a good FromSoft game. I played so many of them. But here's the thing: one thing that dampens my thoughts, my expectations for this game, which it's currently slated for next year, 2026, is the official FromSoft website. Nick, I don't know if you saw this. I don't know if you know what this game is. But
I've seen bits and pieces.
The game is called Duskbloods, all right? And this is what the official website describes it as. This software for Nintendo Switch 2 is a PvPvE-based multiplayer action game in which up to 8 players can fight each other and against enemies. Players become the Twilight Blood Clan, who have gained powers beyond those of humans through the power of their special blood, and throw themselves into fierce battle for first blood. Again, this is translated from the Japanese version, but that's so it's a PvPvE game. All right, so that immediately is a little bit of I don't know. It doesn't feel the same. Again, we kind of talked about how Night Rain is coming out soon, and we have no word if it's coming to Switch 2. I'd imagine if this game is running with a 8-player fight, PvPvE, I don't see why Night Rain couldn't. And if Elden Ring is also kind of the base game is coming to it. So there is going to be an interview with the director on Friday, April 4th. So in 2 days as of when we're recording this. That will kind of answer more questions about Duskbloods, but for now, it's all we know is what I just read, and that it's coming out next year at some point. So,
well, there's also one other very important thing about this, which is that this is going to be exclusively on Nintendo Switch 2. This is not going to be on PlayStation, PC, or Xbox, at least not right now. So, this is a Nintendo exclusive From Software game, which is pretty crazy. And I mean, just to touch on the visuals and everything, like obviously, like you said, very kind of like Bloodborne influenced here, very kind of Victorian. This is a little bit more like vampirism kind of theming going on here.
There's also like one scene that looked like it was like a werewolf almost as well, with like the way it was like it's like a fuck, it's like if I took my shirt off, it's just like a hairy chest is what you saw.
But yeah, I mean, From Software, man. Like those artists are some of the, I think, the most talented in the industry right now. And even on this weird PvP, PvE, however you say it, even on when they're experimenting with different kind of gameplay styles, like that art direction is just so potent and always rises to the top. Like even watching this, it's like, man, it looks like it's on like the Elden Ring engine or whatever, but like it just, something about it captures the imagination.
Yep.
And I will not.
It's really top notch art direction. That's what it is.
I refuse to believe that one shot in there of the weird smiling moon is not some kind of Majora's Mask reference. If this is a Switch exclusive game, like that has to be
100%. That's It looks really awesome. I just we don't know everything yet, so let's take it slow and we'll see what we get. But obviously, FromSoft hasn't really missed so far. At least in kind of they're really good at doing what they do. So, well, I think it'll be a good game at the very least, even if it's a different genre for it.
And
but
we kind of real quick, Sri, we kind of also brushed past it, but I think it is interesting that it's a different type of game, but Miyazaki is still director on it because he's not directing Night Rain, and so that also kind of gets the mind kind of going for me personally, because it's like, okay, so we're definitely in this weird kind of transition period with FromSoft where they are working on some big new single player game follow up to Elden Ring, I'm sure. But we have these kind of multiplayer experiences popping up, and it's like, I wonder what about this game specifically, I guess, has Miyazaki's interest currently.
Yeah. Then we have Kirby Air Riders. That's right. It's not Air Ride 2. It's Air Riders, and it's being directed by
Masahiro Sakurai, the GOAT.
And that's what convinced Nick that he was going to buy this game day one, baby. That's what it was. It wasn't the name; it was the name after the title. It's a very brief glance is what we saw of this, so not much to go on.
It's CG. That's what kind of tipped me off to Sakurai immediately, because like it has that kind of Smash CG trailer kind of look. Mm-hmm. What I found very interesting is that Nintendo doesn't. I shouldn't say doesn't really. They rarely highlight directors on their games. Like if it's somebody like Miyamoto coming out with like Pikmin 4, it's like, yeah, they highlight that. They highlighted Koizumi when Mario Odyssey was doing it. And like they have like Aonuma for like producer on the Zelda series and everything. But rarely in the trailer is it like, this is directed by Sakurai. And it's like, I think he's kind of hit this new status after Smash Ultimate, where it's like people know Sakurai maybe more than some of the games that he works on. So it's like, it's very interesting that was like a prominent part of the end of the trailer.
Yeah. And then the last announcement of the show, ladies and gentlemen, was a big surprise for everybody. It was Donkey Kong Bonanza. It is a brand new Donkey Kong game. Essentially, how I looked at it was the experience, the treatment that Mario got from going from, whatever he had before to Mario Odyssey, where it was this like premium title that was polished, a new look or a new take. I mean, look, some people might not think Odyssey is a new take, but I think at the very least, there's a certain kind of quality that Odyssey had in terms of just mechanics. That was like, oh, this is a Switch. It's a new generation. Here's a new Mario that has a totally different look. Mm-hmm. How that game reinvented that design is what they're doing here for Donkey Kong. And I appreciate the fact that they just didn't do Odyssey 2, which was honestly like my prediction. I was like, oh, some sort of Odyssey sequel will come out. Mm-hmm. This isn't Odyssey 2, but it's Donkey Kong getting his Odyssey. With Donkey Kong Bonanza.
5-star title. I will say that.
It is a really good title. And I love the title card too.
Mm-hmm. The more that I watch this trailer, the more that, because again, sort of like what I just said about, directors with Nintendo, they're not 100% clear with what teams do certain things. That stuff kind of comes out after the fact. But the more I watch this trailer, the more I do think that this is the Odyssey team, because there's so much like visual flourish and animation kind of touches and like how smooth
I
everything
agree.
goes together, that it definitely looks like it's that team's handiwork. And we didn't mention it with Mario Kart, but Mario Kart and this trailer, both, I love the music in these. Like it's like
Yeah,
it has so much energy behind it. And specifically this Donkey Kong one, it has such a interesting vibe to it. Like you have this like terraforming digging mechanic where you can just kind of like break apart parts of the environment. You
and
can
lift
like,
them up or just go digging for what, coins or whatever.
yeah, there was a part where like Donkey Kong like blasted the skin off an enemy and it was just like a golden skeleton standing there and stuff.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
like it has a very interesting vibe, a very interesting art style. It looks like, essentially what you said before. It looks like, Donkey Kong's getting the Odyssey treatment, which I think is really cool. And the first time that Donkey Kong's been in 3D since Nintendo 64. So
long time coming. So that was honestly, it looked really cool. Again, I'm not a big Donkey Kong guy, but also I wasn't a big Mario guy, but I did enjoy Odyssey. So I'm curious
mhm.
to see how these the groundbreaking mechanics that this game's working with kind of really play out in real time. But
I
it looked it's visually, this is like it is one of those showcases for what the kind of a typical, I think, a typical first party experience you can expect
mhm.
on the Switch 2.
Yeah, one other tiny thing that I noticed, that I just wanted to touch on was this game, or at least Donkey Kong, compared to Mario Odyssey, it looks like it plays a lot faster. Like he is like climbing and flipping and jumping up those walls like really quick. So I'm wondering how
Yeah.
crazy some of the platforming could get, or like, how much, basically what you mentioned with like the mechanics that were so well designed for Mario Odyssey, how that's kind of
Yeah.
expanded and, perfected even more in this one.
Yeah. And kind of briefly wrapping up to the package here, just so everyone knows, to end our, well, first of all, Nick, do you have anything else to say about the Switch 2 that we have not already covered?
We got through a lot of it, honestly.
We
I
we,
think,
we did.
yeah. I think it was a good show overall. As far as the games were concerned, some of the tech stuff maybe not so much. Some of the
I
execution left a little bit to be desired there, but
I have not seen a like a console reveal go this kind of like, sideways so fast.
Mhm.
Um, but hey, it was a fun experience going through with you, Nick. Uh, with that said, before we end the Switch 2 conversation, here's some final thoughts. All right, final wrap up. If you need to take away one little thing from the end of this whole thing, it is that the Nintendo Switch 2 will be releasing on June 5th, worldwide, as far as we know. It's going to be $450 for just the console, or $500 bundled in with Mario Kart World. Speaking of, Mario Kart World will be a launch title for the game, for the console, along with the Nintendo Switch versions of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, as well as the Bravely Default Flying Fairy HD remaster that we talked about earlier. And then 1 month after that is when Donkey Kong Bonanza comes out on July 17th, 2025. And then a month after that is Kirby and the Forgotten Kingdom. Oh, sorry, and the Forgotten Land, including Star-Crossed World, will be August 28th. And then we'll see kind of periodic, like the Dusk Blood is next year, and Air Raiders I don't think has a date, so stuff like that
Mhm.
we'll kind of see as it comes. But that's what you need to know about the Nintendo Switch 2. Before we continue the conversation and ask ourselves that very important question that we always do, let's take a quick break to hear a word from our sponsor. This episode is actually brought to you by RespawnStation.com. That's right, while we're not posting daily, maybe not even weekly, we are still writing our thoughts about video games like Avowed or Karma, The Dark World, and you can read all about them over on RespawnStation.com. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm not going to hype it up too much, but my review for Avowed got no notes from Nick. So if you want to see how good that review is and what I thought about Avowed, you know where to go. And we're back. And Nick, wow, we have talked for nearly 2 hours, and I've been itching to ask you this, Nick. Even though I know the answer, but I've been itching to ask you this. What have you been playing, my friend?
Yeah, so for me, honestly, this week it's been pretty light. I'm still playing stuff, but it's essentially the stuff that I talked about last week. Still chipping away at Fallout 76 season challenges. Still hitting that grind, getting those items, that sort of thing. Didn't play any more Split Fiction this week, unfortunately, so I'll have to...
Me neither, dude. Me neither.
Yeah, we'll have to pick up the slack on that here. But what I have been weirdly just getting enveloped in is Red Dead Online, like I mentioned. And
it's got you.
Yeah, it's so fascinating because it's it's like an onion, right? The more layers you peel off, the interesting, the more interesting it's becoming to me. So, yeah, I forget exactly what all I've talked about in regards to Red Dead Online outside of just experiencing like different facets of the game. But as I'm coming to grips more with it, there is these different kind of sections of the game that you can go and interact with at any given time. By that, there is a main story called The Land of Opportunities, I think. And I've been chipping away at these missions. These are more like structured kind of story missions like you would expect from the base game of Red Dead Redemption 2. And what I find interesting, though, is that there's two different paths through the story that are tied to your honor level. So there's like a bad honor level and a high honor level. I was playing through it with high honor, and then last night, actually, I played through a mission. It was kind of like a soft, climactic kind of mission, and once I finished, it gave me a pop-up that was like, you've reached the end of the high honor path, and it was like, if you go and lower your honor, you can go do the other missions. So what you could do is you could run around and, steal things or, murder random NPCs and stuff like that and get your honor level lower. Or there's an NPC on the map that you can pay like a small fee to basically automatically have your honor level reduced.
Okay. Yeah.
That's what I ended up doing. I was like, I'm not going to be bothered with going around and grinding this out for hours to be able to do more missions. So I basically did that and started playing some more missions that way, and did a really fun one where you get to hijack a train and you roll it into this like station. You have to go fight some enemies and steal some stuff from an office, and then you get back on the train and take it out. But it's just like really fun stuff where one player's driving the train, one player has like a machine gun on the train that they can use, and then you have you and your other people just like, taking pot shots off the side of this train as it's going through. But the main thing that I've gotten into recently are roles. And these are kind of like, I guess you would say like classes for this game. So there's 5 roles. There's the bounty hunter, the collector, the moonshiner, the trader, and the naturalist, I think is it. The trader and the naturalist, I've not really interacted with much. They are both kind of revolving around doing hunting missions and stuff. And hunting's just never been something in Red Dead that I really gravitated towards. I find it like a little boring. I do it out of necessity when I have to, but it's just not something that really grips me a whole lot. Bounty hunter, though, was the first one that I did. And for each of these roles, you have to, again, pay like a fee of like the premium currency. You get premium currency by playing, and I guess maybe through like Twitch Prime or something like a long time ago, I redeemed a bunch of this premium currency and never used it because I had like 50 gold bars, which is like the premium currency. So I was able to buy pretty much the roles that I want to. And I started with Bounty Hunter. And essentially how this works is you get like this little intro cutscene, and then there's bounty boards in each of the major towns and train stations. And you can go up to these bounty boards. You can take like a basic bounty, which just kind of spawns like a NPC out in the world that you can go and kidnap or capture and bring back for like some money. Sure. But then they have these legendary bounties, and what these are, they're kind of like bounty hunter story missions. Essentially, each person is introduced with like a cutscene explaining like their backstory and like some unique things about them. You load into a specific mission, and then you have to go and capture this person and bring them to the nearest jail or like a stagecoach that can take them back. Some of these missions have been kind of frustrating. They're cool, but there's like little things. So like there's this one where you have to go out into the swamps to capture this guy that's been hiding out there, and he drugs you essentially when you show up, and he starts appearing out of these puffs of smoke, and he just tries to like run at you with a machete. And so you just kind of shoot him like and get him to go away for a bit, which that part wasn't too bad. Mm-hmm. The hard part is whenever you come to out of that, you have to go find him from these 3 random spots. Not too bad again. You just go and try to find him. What was really frustrating was once you capture him, he has these like mystical alligators that seemingly just keep spawning out of nowhere and just constantly are chasing you down. And if you're playing it by yourself, it's like every time you're trying to get this guy on the horse or whatever, there's an alligator coming up behind you and you have to turn around and shoot. I did a similar bounty hunter mission where it was up in the mountains and it was this guy living with a pack of wolves. Same kind of thing, like wolves just constantly spawning out the ass, trying to like interrupt you. And eventually you can get to a point where like you take out like 30 of these wolves and they stop spawning. And it's like, well, thank God. Like that took long enough. But frustrations aside, the missions are pretty fun. They're cool to, just kind of embody like the bounty hunter kind of vibe and gameplay style.
The Wild West.
And each of these roles has they have like the story missions, like I'm saying, and then they also have kind of like a battle pass almost, where you can get unique cosmetics and different gameplay things.
Is that like a Fallout 1, you think? Or Fallout First?
Not exactly. Again, you can pay premium currency to unlock these things, but
okay.
It's like I haven't really felt incentivized to do it, or like the rewards aren't like that impactful that I feel like I'm going to be missing out on a big experience or whatever because I'm not paying premium currency.
Right.
The other role that I've started is the Moonshiner, just because I thought that sounded kind of funny, and it does add a unique gameplay thing where you can set up a moonshine shack in a part of the map. And essentially, this is kind of like a tiny home base that you can have on the map. And here you can hire this person that will make moonshine for you. And once you gather these resources and stuff and set it up to make a batch of moonshine, it'll take like, 30 minutes of real time to make a batch. And then once the batch is done, you'll be able to take that and you can go sell it for some cash and money to help you pay for other things. So, but like the house, you can upgrade the bar, you can upgrade the actual, what do you call it? Like brewing equipment and stuff like that for making the moonshine to like, make the process more efficient and also get you more money in the end. But you can also get upgrades like a band that plays in the house and stuff. So it's just like some really cool kind of fun side content that also they make it feel more important because it does have like little story missions and cutscenes that you can interact with.
Nice.
But yeah,
so I mean, it seems that it's hooked into you without you noticing.
Yeah, more than I thought, honestly. Like, I thought I was going to dip in and, like, see what's here and then just kind of bounce off of it. But, like, each day, whenever I'm sitting down to play a game, I'm like, yeah, I'll just hop on Red Dead Online, do some more story missions and stuff, and see how far it takes me. I'm curious about the collector role also. That's all about, like, finding unique items out in the world and selling those for a profit. Like I said, I'm probably not going to do much of the hunting specific ones, but for now, the ones that I am doing, they are at least interesting enough for me to keep going with it.
Nice. Yeah, I'll eventually check out Red Dead Online. I've never been a fan, like even GTA Online, I've never really tinkered with, but I think that well, actually, the thing that I think what's most interesting about those is like the role playing when like I watched a ton of GTA 5 role play,
Hmm.
um, which are like endlessly entertaining. And there's like, yeah, there's, I think, I used to watch, and since we're shouting out people, I used to watch Lyric play GTA 5 RP, and it's like writing, you couldn't even write something to go as horribly right or horribly wrong as it did for that. So yeah, definitely. Red Dead Online is one I want to check out.
But yeah, that's all
Now,
I've been playing, Sri. So I'm really curious to hear what your last week has been filled with, what you've been doing for fun.
well, Nick, look, we've been asking ourselves these kind of questions for a while now, and you can't blame a guy for thinking it's getting a little stale. I think we should spice it up a little bit. So I thought we'd introduce some games if you're comfortable with this. Okay, consensually. Um, I want to, instead of just telling you, all right, what game that I'm currently playing, because, well, actually, first I'll say I finished Avowed, and my full thoughts of Avowed are on respawnstation.com. You can read about it and see kind of my full score that I gave it. Everything I've said pretty much in my Avowed diaries of the last 2-3 episodes stand true, and they all kind of reflect in what I think about that game. And nothing, there's no real surprises there. So definitely check out the website for my thoughts on that. But I finished that probably 3 days ago at this point, 4 days ago, and so obviously I got to move on to a different game. It's a fast world. There's a lot of backlog to get through. So Nick, here's what I'm gonna do. I will be I'll be giving you the description of the game that I am currently playing. Okay,
Ooh.
without including the name, and I want to see if you can guess what I'm playing right now. All right.
I think I might be pretty
Uh,
good at this, as long as it's like not like.
I think so as well. This is also a pretty, I think, relatively easy game, but but again, I'm only going to read the Steam description without the name of the game involved.
Nice, this is
So
gonna be
it's
fun.
okay. So this game brings true freedom to open world gaming. Players who play as who they want, how they want, and with whomever they want in this sequel to the much acclaimed and tremendously successful series. Or first game, I'll say first game.
First game. You said it's open world,
Yep.
or
This game brings true freedom to open world gaming, and players
true
can
freedom
play
to
who
open world.
who they want, how they want, and with whomever they want in this sequel to the much acclaimed and tremendously successful first game.
Whew. Man, this is just
Mm.
vague enough that this is going to be tricky. Um,
I'll give you a year
yeah, that
if you
would
want to
help.
call a lifeline. Okay. Lifeline is used. It came out. I'll give you the full date. It came out January 28th of 2009.
Wow. Okay. Open world games 2009. Prior to obviously like GTA 5, we're after GTA 4, so it's probably not a Rockstar game that you're playing. Um I'm thinking like Just Cause 2 was probably around that time. But I don't know if that would necessarily have that kind of a descriptor attached to it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
let's see. Oh man. Is
Threw you on the
it
spot, dude.
okay, how about this? Are there more than 2 games in the series since?
Yes, there are.
Is it a Ubisoft game?
No, it is not.
Oh, this is even harder now. That eliminates like 4 different options I was gonna go with. I really have no idea. Can I get a publisher as a second lifeline?
Yes, the publisher. I think this will give it away. The publisher is Deep Silver.
Is this the Saints Row?
Yes, it is. This is Saints Row 2. And
What a
just
pull!
because
What made you want to play
you,
that?
well, first of all, I did look it up because you said it. Just Cause 2 came out on March 23rd of 2010, so a
Oh,
year
I was
later.
pretty close.
So it was close. Yeah, it was right in that range. All right, I can still hear you. I had to make sure my mic wasn't unplugged with my actions. So, all right, here's the thing. Um, there was a. I'm currently in between games. Well, when I was making the decision earlier this week to play a game, I was currently in between games for review. If you've, obviously in the prior incarnation of this show, the way it kind of always worked was, um, I mean, at least that's how I felt, Nick. I don't know if you felt differently, but pretty much I would go from one review game to the other, and then in
Mm,
between I'd like squeeze in other, like random games.
yeah.
Um, so at this point, I didn't have a game to review, and so I had a few games that were on my Switch 2 here. That's what I have. This Nintendo Switch 2 early. Um, and so I was debating a few games that I had on there, and I'll be honest. The other game is one that I still want to get to. It's Streets of Rogue, and if I've hyped up the second one. I think the second one looks awesome, and so I wanted to get an idea of what the first one was, and
Hmm.
then I played it, and I was like, oh, this is not at all the thing like. I didn't know if you knew this, but it's a roguelike. And so it really threw me off. That was kind of the core concept of the game. And after playing Avowed, I wanted a game where it was a little bit more of like there was a narrative structure, and there was, even if it wasn't necessarily like a good story, just something that was engaging to me.
Hmm.
Um, and so I was looking at my Steam library, and Saints Row 2 was on there, and it's technically, I think, identified as playable. So it's not a verified Steam Deck game,
Hmm.
but honestly, the hardest part is controls. Like, it runs really well. There's no really like problems in terms of running it, but it's just um figuring out what buttons are do what. Like, there's a lot of times where I'm just like, is that the button to do this? Nope, that's not it. Is that the button? Oh, I just shot someone. No, that's not it. So it's a learning curve in that way. But that being said, um to kind of really say why this is on my backlog, last year I played Saints Row the reboot, and I had like
Ah.
written up like half a review, and that was actually actually no, it wasn't my first Saints Row. The first Saints Row I played was Saints Row Gat Out of Hell, which also doesn't really, it's not really a proper introduction. But I played Saints Row the reboot last year. I wrote up half a review, and I was like, oh, it wasn't necessarily a review, it was more of like an opinion piece, and I was just kind of spewing out my thoughts. Like, there's quite a few of those just like word dumps I have that are unpublished. I also have one of Suicide Squad kills the Justice League as well, just on my hard drive that I just haven't put up.
Hmm.
So, Saints Row being such an interesting game that I wanted to kind of look into and see what it like, where did this series come from? Because I was playing Saints Row and I was like, I don't get this. I mean, obviously that game did not do well, infamously. It was led to the doom of Volition, but I wanted to see how Saints Row began, and so that's why Saints Row 2. That's why I bought Saints Row 2, and that's kind of why it was on my backlog of games to check out.
Hmm.
And right now, I'm probably 2 hours, 2.5 hours in. There's been some weird, again. Oh, there was one crash, but that was like, I don't know what caused it, or not crash. It was just a freeze. I don't know what. Like, I don't know how to. I don't know if I was like, oh, I'm in a menu and I couldn't get out of it or whatever. But
Hmm.
luckily the save was pretty good. But it's interesting. It's actually like I find myself kind of chuckling at it as I'm playing. There's one thing that, since I was just talking about it, kind of going off of what my last game that I played was Avowed, and I had mentioned that there's a point where essentially my character in the game has like was a touched by the gods, so I like my character's supposed to have these growths on their face. Um, and I
Hmm.
said, don't show them on my face. Like, that's something in character customization you can do. And I didn't realize like that was to be such a pivotal part of the game. And I go into the game, and everyone's like, oh, what's that on your face? But like, there's nothing on my face because I turned off that setting. And I don't know, something about that was always like, ah, damn it. Every single time I was like, I shouldn't have fucking turned off that setting, whatever. This
Mm.
time around, I was like, I'm not gonna create it like some other character. I'm just gonna be myself. I made the character, bald with a beard, pretty much, and jacked, completely ripped, just like I am. And so I'm playing the game, and in this game, so far it happened twice where characters like look at my character and go, "Huh, hey, did you do something with your hair?" And every time I'm like, "That's pretty funny. It works well with my character."
Mm-hmm.
And so it's funny that like a similar kind of effect, but in this game it really lands for me. Whereas in that game it always took me out. I don't know. It was a weird observation, but again, I'm only 2 hours in, so very just kind of first impressions there. Um, and then earlier today, I got the next game to review. And unfortunately, I can't talk about it because it is embargoed until next week. So next episode, you should be able to hear my thoughts on it. But man, I'm excited to talk about this one. So definitely come back and stay tuned for that.
Right on.
I think that is all I have been playing as well. I haven't really done much else. I played like briefly, like I played like an hour or so, 2 hours maybe of Tabs, totally accurate battle simulator with Austin. That was pretty interesting. I didn't play that before.
I've heard of that
It's
game,
just
but
kind of
I've never really like looked much into it.
it was on Game Pass. We were bored one night, so we're like, hey, let's just see what happens. And it's literally it's like a small map. You split it in two. Left side is one person, right side is the other, and then you just put like you could pick like dinosaurs versus ice giants, or you want to be more accurate, you can do like a king versus peasants and or bards. Like there's like
Mm-hmm.
different combinations, and you just hit play and then just watch the simulation of this hypothetical battle occur. So it was entertaining. It kept us occupied for a little bit.
Nice.
And other than that, there's really nothing else I've been playing. I'm excited to play more Saints Row 2. And I am gonna keep up this tradition. I think obviously for when I'm playing games for review and I'm talking about those, you'll hear kind of my thoughts on them. But every time I'm playing a game off my backlog, I'm gonna have Nick try to guess what that game is
Nice.
beforehand.
That's a fun
So
shakeup.
I gotta spice things up, Nick. So with that said, we have a few quick things to end this episode off. First, some quick news items that we'll throw your way. First of all, Doom: The Dark Ages. The media preview went out for this earlier this week, which was generally positive. I was actually not that I was expecting this game to be like panned or anything like that, but
Mm-hmm.
they were definitely. Oh shit! There we go. Let me go back here. I'm sorry, I just flashbanged myself. The game was generally like mixed reception from kind of the initial reveal because of how the gameplay was changing in
A
terms
little bit
of, oh,
more
you're not
slower than, a little bit
exactly.
more grounded than Doom Eternal, which obviously was very successful with a lot of people.
Yeah, but this is, and also a different composer as well. Notably, that was a huge
Mm-hmm.
story that happened a few years ago as well. But the previews are all relatively positive. At least everything I've seen has been pretty like, oh yeah, this is it doing its thing. And even though it is a relatively slower game, it's sort of I heard people compare it to a bullet hell almost in terms of that. But then
Mm-hmm.
the speed of movement is still there, and there's certain attacks and stuff that kind of really let you close the distance and get up close and personal with enemies. So
Yeah,
I'm looks awesome.
the obviously I was gonna be on board with it anyway. Like I've played a bunch of the
Right.
Doom games, but I was also kind of in that camp, like you mentioned, where it's like I mean I really enjoyed Doom Eternal. Like that's a hard act to follow, and when it's like looking like a bit slower and everything, I was like I don't really know. But after watching some of the gameplay from the previews and stuff, it's like oh yeah, I'm probably gonna get this. Like this looks pretty sick, and yeah, specifically, it's like some of the big enemies that they have. It looks like from a lot of the gameplay, people are just getting into this rhythm where it's just like, shotgun blast, block with shield, dash, like
Yeah,
dash
yeah.
into a shotgun blast, like switch machine gun. And it's like,
Yeah.
I could definitely feel that being like a really fun loop to get into in a Doom
Yeah,
game
no, I
specifically.
agree. Looks awesome. I've personally not played. I played a lot of the original Doom, but I've not played. Well, I played a lot of the opening of the original Doom because back when I was in high school, someone put a few like games on our like school's public folder where like hidden in the public folder, so like any computer in the school could access it. One of those games was Alan Wake 1. The other was Halo Combat Evolved, and the third, or no, the third was Binding of Isaac, and the fourth was Doom. So I played a lot of. If I was like, my friends were not, you know, couldn't hop on Combat Evolved with me, then I'd either play Alan Wake, the first chapter of Alan Wake, or I'd play Doom.
That's crazy, man.
Yeah, that was my little fun throwback for you guys. So I have not played Doom 2016 or Doom Eternal, but as of last week, I now own both of those games along with Doom 3, which is actually, if I'm being entirely honest, that's the game that's been on my backlog the most. I for some reason, ever since I've seen Doom 3, I'm like, oh, dude, I want to play that game. I don't know why. I don't even think it's a good. I don't know if it's critically acclaimed or anything, but it's just something about Doom 3. I'm like, I want to play that game.
It's definitely very different in vibe from all of the other ones. So
it feels more horror. At least what is like the vibe that it feels.
Yeah.
Like, okay. Yeah.
It's not like a horror game. But yeah, the vibes are more scary.
My goal is, if everything works out, over on YouTube and on our Discord, I put up a poll what's my next game to stream, and currently it's I think a tie between two games that are pretty different. It's Assassin's Creed Mirage or Flintlock Siege of Dawn, I think is what it's called. So we'll see which game wins. There's only like 5 hours left in that poll. So whatever wins, I'll be playing probably starting tomorrow on stream, and then you'll hear about that next episode as well. And after that, whatever game wins after that is beaten, I'll probably play Doom 2016 to kind of get ready, in time for Doom the Dark Ages. I'm not gonna jump into Dark Ages right away, but I just want to get, it's the time to play it. If you're gonna get a game off your backlog, it's when the new one's coming out, right? Like that's classic. All right, next up we have quick news about Zelda. Zelda the movie is coming out on March 26th, 2027. It's actually currently CinemaCon, so there's a lot of movie news getting thrown around. And so this was a quick one we wanted to shout out. Also from the director of Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, which was visually really cool, and I'm interested to see how this person's Zelda movie turns out, because the CG on Kingdom was really cool, and I think that kind of that used into the Zelda world building could be really awesome to look at.
And with Nintendo helping pretty closely, like it does give me hope that, like, even though it's live action and that's maybe not the direction I would have taken something like that, it does give me hope that, like, I mean, if the stars align, like, this could be really cool. So
yeah. And then lastly, actually, well, here I have a few things. So first of all, last episode, dude, I was so spot on, and then by the time the episode went out, it had already come true. I had mentioned last episode that Ubisoft was probably there's like talks that it was going to do some sort of a subsidiary where it kind of puts all its IPs into one basket, where it doesn't have the baggage of having, all of Ubisoft's like debt and employees and everything. And it's exactly what they did. And then Tencent ended up, I think, putting a $1 billion or whatever. It's a lot of money that they put into this subsidiary to own certain, or to kind of license out some of the famous Ubisoft titles, such as Far Cry, Assassin's Creed, Rainbow Six, I believe, or Rainbow Six Siege.
I think you're
is definitely
right.
Yeah. So yeah, that's happening as well. Just to kind of give that a quick shout out. We won't see the kind of immediate ramifications of that, but it seems to be some sort of the idea is probably to improve stock prices. It's easier to tell people, hey, invest in our company, when it's just a subsidiary that has just a valuable licenses and IPs, and not, all the employees and all that stuff. Like the development of Beyond Good and Evil 2 is not under this subsidiary. So
right.
That's got to look good, right? All right, so quickly, I'll give a quick shout out to a few games that split into our inboxes. So from Chucklefish, a game that I was really looking forward to already, and then it was actually at the showcase earlier today for the Nintendo Switch 2. It's Witchbrook. It's coming out this winter, and it's described as a spellbinding life sim where you can play up to 4 players. Start your life as the newest resident witch in the bustling seaside port of Mossport. Seaside city of Mossport. And so it's kind of it's a life sim where you play as a witch. It gives off, dare I say, Harry Potter vibes for those people.
It's like Harry Potter Stardew is what it looks like in my head.
Yeah, there you go. That's a good crossover. Coming up on April 17th, speed climbing horror roguelite White Knuckles is coming out into Steam Early Access. And I got to be honest, I wasn't expecting much from this game, but trust me, when you look at the gameplay, it looks really interesting. Like I haven't really seen a game like this, at least in my, it's essentially, it's first person, it's kind of pixelated art style. It's not like really pixelated. It's kind of like crunchy a little bit, but essentially you have just the 2 hands and you can climb. You have to climb up, and so you can not only grab onto like holdings that you have, but you can use like rods to like make climbing posts for you that you can kind of catch onto. And the walls will be deteriorating. You have to jump over gaps and dodge traps and stuff like that. It looked really awesome. The gameplay trailer really sold me on it. And then the last one. This is last one, kind of officially. Okay, two things. A few months ago, at some point, I think last year probably, I reviewed a game called The Invincible. Nick, do you remember this?
Yeah, that's the retro sci-fi looking one.
Yes, yeah. So that's from Starward Industries, and their new game, which was originally revealed to be called, I think, Dante's Ring, got re-revealed with a new title. It's an action adventure RPG, and it's now called Into the Fire. Looks cool. Again, they have a new trailer for that as well, a new teaser trailer that looks interesting. This is a story. The last story here, official story, is shout out to Alexa and Austin. I know they're big RuneScape RuneScape goats. I don't know. This is RuneScape Dragon Wilds. It is a newly announced co-op survival adventure game that's powered by Unreal Engine 5. So it's set in the RuneScape universe in the forgotten continent of Ashenfall, where players gather, craft, and wield powerful magic. It's launching into early access in spring 2025, so like anytime now at this point. And there's going to be a deep dive reveal on April 15th. So keep an eye out for this one. It's hotly incoming. Nick, are you a RuneScape head? Are you a RuneScape goat?
Not at all. I've listened to the sea shanty theme in various memes and stuff, but I will say I think more people should use Forgotten Continent. That's a nice way to be like, we want this new land here. It's just people forgot about it.
Oh shit! Where was that?
Where was that place? That entire landmass.
All right. So the last thing we're going to say for today, before we wrap up this episode, if you didn't know, yesterday was, as of when we're recording this, was April 1st, also known as April Fools. We had a great video on Chumbag TV that you should definitely check out. Had some things to announce, like the fact that I'm married.
Woo!
That's right. It's public. And so, that's why part of the reason I'll say why we went off of air between the last season and this one. And there's quite a few stories, quite a few game developers threw out some kind of fun surprises, kind of April Fool stuff. Nick, did you see anyone that you wanted to shout out?
Honestly, I was kind of like off air on April Fools. I didn't see many that I specifically. I mean, I watched our video, the Chumbag video.
Right.
But yeah, I didn't see a whole lot. I will say I did see one. It was I followed the 8-Bit Big Band, which put out a bunch of really nice covers of video game music, and they did one where it was essentially just like a silent piece of music. So that was pretty cool.
Nice. So I did see that Talos Principle had it was Talos Principle Reawakened, and the trailer was just like, "Do you want to play a game but not the puzzles? Welcome to Talos Principle Reawakened. We'll do the puzzles for you." And it's like, is the text too long? You can shorten it down, and if you press it enough times, it'll just give you an emoji. And it was like, oh, is this too complex for you, or is this too much to read? How about this? Here's some serious Sam gameplay over top the gameplay to keep you engaged. So I thought that was fun. And then, all right, THQ Nordic and their PR team at Deadgood sent us over an email called Arcania, The Fall of Sans Serif, a legendary font apocalypse begins. So this is the world of gaming is about to witness a battle unlike any other. From the minds of highly advanced artificial intelligence and some very sleep-deprived humans, we are thrilled to announce Arcania, with the AI in the middle, all caps, The Fall of Sans Serif, an epic RPG adventure that pits players against the most notorious and overused fonts in history. A mysterious force threatens the world of Arcania, a land where typography and magic are one. The once harmonious balance between typefaces has been shattered, and the sans serif fonts, once considered modern and clean, have grown corrupt with power. Their leader, the ruthless Helvetica the Hollow, has seized control, oppressing the serif fonts and plunging the land into chaos. But hope remains. You, a young hero, known only as the typographer, must embark on an epic journey to restore balance and ensure that no font shall dominate over the others. So first of all, I was just reading this. I was like, what the hell am I? What's going on here? And then they linked to the THQ's assets. And I was like, this is what's going, like, there's got to be like, I was expecting like, April Fools. But no, they have AI generated screenshots of this fucking game, this hypothetical game. And so I appreciate them sticking to the bit. I got to share these with you, Nick. They look very interesting. But honestly, I think this was really just kind of a way to promo that, at the end here, they say, add Gothic 1 remake to your wish list today, while you're also adding Arcania.
Man, what a pun.
Yeah. Yes. So I appreciate it. So shout out to THQ Nordic for that one. Or Deadgood PR. And I don't know who came up with it, but well done, folks. But with that said, ladies and gentlemen, this has been a big episode of the Respawn Station podcast. We hope you enjoyed. If you did, Nick, what do they do? What do they got to do, man? I don't know what to tell them.
If you did enjoy, you're required to give us a like. You're also required to give us a good rating on podcast services. And you know what? We'll let it slide, but if you want, you can leave a comment and say how you felt.
There you go. Couldn't have said it better myself. So, as always, people, until we'll be back next week to talk more about video games. So stay subscribed. And until then, have a good night, a good morning, and a damn good time. See ya.